Okay, so what happened on this day is that this is when Nebuchadnezzar first began setting siege to the walls of Jerusalem, and that is why it has such a severity, as this was the beginning of the end. This was, Tisha B'Av was a result of this. So since it's the beginning of the end, it has an aspect of severity, even over other fasts. There's another event that happened, and it happened on Tes B'Tevis, not Asar B'Tevis, but Tes B'Tevis, and it's listed in Megillas Tainis and in the Shulchan Aruch as a fast day that used to be kept. Back in the day, Jews were very into fasting, and there's a whole list of days that people used to fast, meticulous Jews. The Shulchan Aruch says, I can't tell you. And it says, I can't tell you, and this is the day that Ezra HaSefer passed away. In the last of Anshe Knesset Agdala, he passed away on this day, so therefore it's a fast day. But everyone, of course, focuses on what is this I can't tell you? What is the secret that we can't talk about? In other sources, it says we don't know what happened. And by the way, Ezra HaSefer passed away. So we've discussed this in the past, and we've mentioned in length in previous classes that the Baruch Tam, was a famous guy in the 1700s in Europe, writes that on this day, a person by the name of Yochanan Pablos passed away. I'm sorry, Shimon Pablos. Shimon Akipa passed away. Shimon Akipa was Peter, the apostle of the Christians. He passed away on this day. And he says, as is explained in Toldos Yashka, the book Toldos Yashka is an old manuscript written at least over 1,000 years ago, prior to 1,000 years ago, we don't know exactly when, of the history of Yashka. And there it mentions that Peter was his uncle. It was his mother's brother. And he was a student of Rabbi Akiva. Well, so was Yashka. But Yashka went off the deep end, while this uncle of his mother's brother, was a tzaddik. His name was Shimon, and Reb Shimon was appointed to infiltrate the ranks of Christianity after Yashka was put to death, and he passed away on the 9th of Tevis, this Monday. And therefore the sages they enacted a fast day in his commemoration, but in order not to anger the church, they kept it secret, but they made sure to tell us, I'm not going to tell you what happened. So then, of course, try to figure out what happened, and will be some remembrance of it. Because if it would have said, Ezra HaSefer passed away, then nobody would ever know that there's another reason. But they made sure to let us know there's another reason that they can't tell us that is there.
Did the Toldos Yashka say how he died?
Yeah, sure. It goes through the whole story.
Remember what it said?
Yeah. He was killed by the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim.
He was killed by
the Sanhedrin. He was put to death by the Sanhedrin. It goes through all the details.
Because you know what the Christian version of his death is. Right.
We know the Christians have their own version of the history. But as Jews, there's no reason why we should accept their version, especially when their version came in expense of censoring our version. So if they allowed our version to exist and just had their own version, okay, then you could say. But once they're out to erase our version, only put out their version, then we should specifically only believe our version, even if you're a Christian. What are you hiding? What do you need to censor it for? You're scared of the truth? So in our version, it says that he was put to death by the Chachamim.
But if he was under the agent, undercover agent, why did they do that?
Shimon, no. Yashka was not an undercover agent.
No, I'm talking
Shimon
about
Kippur
Shimon.
was. Oh, no, it doesn't say what happened. He wasn't killed.
Yeah, that's what
You're asking what happened to Shimon Kippur. Oh, I thought you were asking what happened to Yashka.
No, I'm asking what happened to him. 'Cause
Shimon Kippur. I'm sorry. So Shimon Kippur, it says like this. Shimon Kippur, why was he called Kippur? Because he moved to Rome. He moved the headquarters of Christianity to Rome. And they built for him a cave in Rome. And this is where he would seclude himself. And this is also Christian history has this. This everybody agrees on, that he would seclude himself. But the difference is in Christian history, it says that he would get messages from Yashka and tell them the messages. In Jewish history, it says that he would learn Torah there, put on tefillin, daven like a righteous Jew, and send letters to Chachamim, including saying that don't worry, he's staying strong, he hasn't forgotten his mission, and he would send piyutim. Our tradition has it that Shimon, when he was in the caves, he would write the liturgy for the prayers, and we have some of his liturgy in the Yom Kippur prayer, Laveda, some of the prayers that he wrote. So he specifically asked for that. It says and told his Yashka, he asked him to build in this cave under the pretense that he's talking to Yashka in order so they don't discover him, that he's really a secret Jew. So since he was a hidden tzaddik, therefore the Chachamim and helped, and he was successful in the mission. That was his whole mission. His whole mission was to divert Christianity away from Judaism, to bring it to the Gentiles instead of Jews, and that's what he did. And commemorate his righteousness, they set up a Tainus Tzaddikim on his day, on the 9th of Tavis. But today, all of these fasts that are mentioned in Megillas Tainus, we no longer follow, we no longer do. It's just too hard on us. We're too weak. We're too bodily weak. Therefore, we don't do these fasts. But it's important to know of the date, that the date exists. The 9th of Tavis is a fast day. The main day is the 10th. Okay. Now we're going to go through a review of halachas for the fast day, and we're going to get scheduled. So Shlach Kadosh writes that one of the most important things to avoid on a fast day, of course, besides for eating and drinking, is anger. A person's be very careful not to get peididik, not to be angry on a fast day, as the klippus can't wait until a person gets angry. The famous Maisa with a student of the Arizal, I think it was the Arizal, right? Glass of milk and student of Arizal. Anyone know? Who was it with? I believe it was student of Arizal, that he was accustomed to. Oh no, it was one of the students of the Baal Shem Tov. Students of the Baal Shem Tov. It was a student of Baal Shem Tov who was accustomed to fast. He was into the fasting, all the fast days. Not just the 4. He fasted all the Megillas Tainus fast days, and many more fast days. And he was accustomed that at night he would break his fast on a cup of milk. And habitually, when he would come to get his cup of milk, something would happen and it would spill. Every time he came to cut his cup of milk, it would spill. And he would get very angry. One time his wife, one time his kid, every time something else, every time another story. He would get very upset, very angry. And he came to the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov told him that you should know that the klippus have a lot of enjoyment of your fast. They receive chayas from your fast more than all Klal Yisrael eating. How? He says that when you spill, and you get angry, you feed them their fuel like there's no other fuel like your anger. So he says it's better you don't fast and you don't get angry on the cup of spilled milk than you fast and get angry on the cup of spilled milk. So that's why anger is, the klippus are looking for it. They're looking for it on a fast day, to especially avoid it. The halacha is that you're allowed to eat up until morning. Morning is defined as Aleis Shachar, but only in the event that you didn't go to sleep in the interim. If you went to sleep already and you woke up before Aleis, it's forbidden to eat unless you stipulated before going to sleep. And you can do that now. You don't have to remember to do that now. You can say right now, when I go to sleep Monday night, I am intending, if I wake up beforehand, to not yet begin the fast and to be able to eat and drink. If a person did not make the stipulation while eating, he cannot do. He is allowed to drink. So drinking is mutter. So from food, in essence, the fast begins when you go to sleep for the night on Monday night for food, unless you stipulate it. Regarding the time of Alais, we've mentioned a number of times that here in Eretz Yisrael, we are accustomed to follow the ruling of Amram Chaim No, that Alais HaShachar is 120 fluctuating minutes before sunrise, which is like what is written in the Israeli calendars, in the Israeli Chabad.org, in the Israeli calendar Skashrus, maybe in the Dvar Malchus, I don't know what they have there. So there they have the accurate times that we follow here in Eretz Yisrael. English Chabad.org does not, and it should not be followed regarding when the fast starts. We go through this every single time. We follow, or they're probably going to print, it's about 5 o'clock, Alei Shachar. We follow an earlier time. It's about 4-ish. You have to look at the calendar. The Tzemach Tzedek publicizes it.
So which oops. Did it get lost?
No. Right, so we're 431. 431. What is this? This has like 50 times in it.
Times
Oh.
of everybody's.
Everything. So we follow the very, very beginning, 26 degrees below sunrise.
Okay.
431. So this is, you did this for Tuesday?
I don't know.
Oh, and this is for Friday, December 27th, it says. To change the date. This was last week.
Okay.
We're a week later, more than a week later.
Right, 4:34.
Maybe it's 4:34.
Well, it's 434, that's what it says?
Yeah.
26 degrees? Okay. 434, you got it.
Yeah, well, that was like
434, yeah. We got another 3 minutes. What do you mean?
yeah, exactly.
Can be a few more spoonfuls of the cereal.
So that's a big difference than 120 is money or minutes.
100%. It's a huge difference, yeah. The Alei Sashacha that they published is 72 minutes, which is like 5 something. What does it say? 5:15? 72.
72, 527.
Yeah, 5:27. It's almost an hour of a difference.
So what is it, 420 now?
We're 24.
It's in-
Here in Eretz Yisrael, we follow the opinion of, there's different opinions of what the Alter Rebbe held of Alei Sashacha. There's different opinions in Chabad as well. Here in Eretz Yisrael, the Rabbani Chabad, we follow the opinion of Am Chaim No. He was the Pesach here, that held that it's 2 fluctuating hours before, and which is 100, which is basically 26 degrees below the horizon. When the sun reaches 26 degrees below the horizon, that's already Alei Sashacha. So it's 4:34. That's what we just looked up. 4:34 a.m. As all fast days, a person who is sick is exempt from fasting. The winter, we're into, unfortunately, a flu season. Certainly, anyone who is sick is exempt from fasting. He should not be machmer to fast. He's not supposed to fast. And the same applies for a woman who is pregnant. A woman who is pregnant today, she does not have to fast, and we're not customary for her to fast. A nursing woman is not obligated to fast on any of these fast days, aside for Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, so she also does not have to fast. If she's no longer nursing, but is within 2 years of giving birth, practically, I've discussed this a few times, some poskim say she doesn't have to fast. The more accepted ruling is that she does have to fast, even if she's within 24 months. But if she's nursing in actuality, then she's exempt. Pregnancy is determined by after 40 days of conception. You don't have to be 3 months. Once a woman is 40 days past, she's already considered pregnant in this regard. She does not have to fast. Of course, a woman after birth is within 30 days. If she's nursing, she does not have to fast. Children never have to fast any of the rabbinical fast days, even if they're before bar mitzvah. We've mentioned this a number of times. There is no source whatsoever for the worldly statement, you have to fast 3 fasts before your bar mitzvah. It's some nonsense that maybe the reform movement entered. I don't know who. Someone entered it. Someone who wanted reform to reform the laws entered the thing. There's no source for this whatsoever. Alter Rebbe writes Beferish, the Chachamim did not institute the rabbinical fast in Rosh Hashanah. If they want to, it's something else. I'm not saying they're not allowed to. I'm just saying they don't have to, and they don't have to be forced to, and they don't have to be educated to, and there's no hiddur to do so. In the davening, we say slichus, we say Avinu Malkeinu. This would follow all the standard laws of slichus, that you have to skip the 13 attributes of mercy. You give me the sarachamim if you are not present with a minyan. It's interesting that our custom is to say Avinu Malkeinu on fast day, but this was not the initial custom of Chabad. It also was not the widespread custom of other sects of Jewry. There are many sects of Jewry who don't say Avinu Malkeinu. They view it as a very special prayer that we save it only for Seres Mitzvah for very special times. But we're accustomed to say it on a fast day.
Both in
Shachris and Mincha, yeah. In Shachris and Mincha. Anenu, those who are fasting, recite Anenu in Shemana Esrei of Mincha. Sfardim say even in Shachris, we only do Mincha. Ashkenazim. If you forgot it, you move on. It doesn't invalidate the prayer. If you forgot it, but you could say it, just like we said regarding Alanisim, you can say it by the second Yulurats, and you can add it in if you forgot to say it. It's forbidden to rinse the mouth on a fast day unless you are in extreme discomfort. If your mouth is really bothering you, you are allowed to brush your teeth, you're allowed to use mouthwash, you're allowed to rinse your mouth. But if not, then you're not allowed to do so on a fast day. It applies to any fast day. Okay, these are the basic halachas. Anyone have any questions? Went pretty quick, huh?
What about age? You know, I mean, if somebody's over 70 or
Age.
80.
So age. It's like this: someone who feels that they're fragile, they're weak, they're old, and it's difficult for them to fast. The place can write that they should discuss the matter with their doctor, and after their doctor's implication, after the doctor says, his diagnosis, then they can decide not to fast if the doctor says that it's not a good idea. But we don't give a general exemption for people. Senior citizens don't have to fast. It doesn't exist. Now, what happens if somebody wants to do Kishmai Kainhu and turn the fast day into a very fast day and travel as it starts, beginning 4:25 arrives, the fast day begins according to the Alter Rebbe. He hops on a plane traveling to China, and he's going to be arriving at China at night, but it's only going to take him 4 hours to get to night. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He quickened his fast day. Until what time does he have to fast? Someone who's on a plane on a fast day, how does it work? Somebody travels on a fast day. To what time do they have to fast? He left at 4:45. By the time it's 9:45 or 8:45, it's already dark because he's traveling against the sun.
Where you end up.
So the answer is that the Maisa, as soon as it's dark outside, he can break his fast. So even if it ends up that he had only a 5 or 6 or 7 hour fast, it doesn't matter. So also in this case, if somebody wants to go to, I believe now in the South Pole is where they have, in the North Pole is where they have, now they have short days, it's the winter. So if you want to go there, you can have a very quick 2-3 hour fast day, and you're done. That's true. Now, I was asked a shayla between the opposite case. Somebody's traveling to New York on a fast day. So what time do they have to fast? So Rabbi Moshe was of the opinion you have to fast until it's night outside of your plane. So you mean you just got yourself an extra 7 hours of a fast. So it's not such a good idea to travel in that direction on a fast day. It makes it into a very slow day and a very long fast.
And when is it over?
Tzeisek Yechavim, the regular Tzeisek Yechavim. There's no, I know it's different calendars, write all these different things. Bottom line is the regular time the 3 stars are out, that is when the fast is over. What we do is on a fast day, we're more lenient to start Ma'ariv for men. We don't eat before Ma'ariv, so we're more lenient to start Ma'ariv before Tzeisek Yechavim. But we don't actually eat anything. We don't break the fast till Tzeisek Yechavim, so So in essence, it's the same time that's written in every calendar of every day of when nightfall is. It follows the same time. Okay, Merit Hashem, we merit that these days, Yafchi Yamelu, the Sasim, and the Simcha, we'll have a great celebration on this, the 9th of Tevis, the 10th of Tevis. Okay, we're going to continue. Where is it? Supposed to be here. We're going to continue from Laws of Birchas Hanenin that we were up to. We stopped 2 weeks ago for Hanukkah laws, and we're going to continue from where we left off. The last thing we discussed in Birchas Hanenin was, I believe, switching areas. If a person switched areas in middle of eating something or middle of a meal, what halacha is, right? Everyone remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was, I believe, the last thing we left off with. And if you recall, we said that while switching areas by a burn of fascist food may require you to repeat the bracha again, when you switch areas by in middle of a meal and you already ate a kazayas of bread, then b'diavad you never have to repeat hamaitzi, but l'chatchila you're not allowed to move until you bench, unless you had in mind to do so at the time of the washing. That's what we explained 2 weeks ago. So we're going to start a new topic, meaning a new chapter of these halachas in Birchas Hanenin, and that is called Hesech Hadas during a meal. If a person ate, let's say he ate his meal, he decided, I'm done, I had enough to eat, I looked on my calorie chart, I'm already, 50% over, and that's it, I'm done eating. But after a few minutes, he got a little distracted, he didn't bench right away, and he changed his mind. He said, I'm really still hungry, that piece of cake really still looks good, I would really like another bite of the chicken. Ever happen? Yes.
The piece of cake, yes.
It happens that we thought we finished our meal, we thought we finished eating, and then we change our minds. We decide to eat again before benching. If you always are makbid to bench immediately as soon as you decide not to eat anymore, then it won't happen. There's no time for it to happen. But if you sometimes take a little break, you stop, you talk, or doing what we're doing, then you change your mind, or even to have a drink. I decided to stop. I'm over. The meal's over, but I'm thirsty. I want to drink now. What happens? So we already learned in previous chapters that in general we rule that the hamaitzi you say on bread covers all the meal-associated foods. But perhaps once you decide to stop eating, you've now disassociated yourself from that blessing. And whatever you now decide to continue eating is no longer attached to the blessing of hamaitzi, and therefore you'd have to say a new bracha. So the bottom line is like this. Regarding drinking, okay, there's going to be a difference between drinking and eating in this halacha. If you decided meal's over, even if you didn't say the words, just in your mind, in your head, I don't plan on eating anymore, I'm done. And now you decided, you know what, I'm really thirsty, I want to have a drink, you have to say a bracha of shahakol. That's halacha. Your blessing over the liquids is not dependent anymore or connected anymore to the hamaitzi, and therefore it must have a new blessing said, the same way you would have to say a bracha if you had a cup of water right now. It's not covered by the hamaitzi. However, by food, it's a little different. By food, we find a debate in the Paiskim. Some Paiskim say it's the same thing. If you decided to end your meal, either in your mind or you said it, so you're eating with somebody, you tell them, let's bench. And he says, okay. And then you continue talking for 3 minutes, and then you see you still have food in front of you, you were full, 3 minutes later you're hungry again, you want to eat a little bit, you change your mind. So they say you have to say a new bracha. If it's mezainis, a shahakol, a dama, it's whatever it is, you have to say a new bracha. It's not any more connected to the previous bracha of hamaitzi. But other poskim say, we got to be realistic. Does a Jew ever really remove his mind from eating? Do we ever really decide not to eat? It's a wishful thinking. It's a nice, idea. It's an idea. It's something that we bring up to vote on. But it's actually not actually done. We always change our minds with food. So he says that a decision to no longer eat is not really a decision. And therefore, everything is included in your hamaitzi until you actually bench. Once you finally bench, that's it. It's over. Once you bench, you decide not to eat again. New brachas must be said. But until you've actually done the action of benching, you can still have it included. So we have a machlekes here. Based on this machlekes, we rule safek brachas lahakil. We rule the following way. A, if you decide to continue eating after you've decided to stop eating, you don't say a bracha on it. Unlike liquids. By liquids, you said you have to say a new blessing. By food, you don't say a new blessing because of the debate. Not everyone agrees to this, but you can't say a bracha when Paiskim say you're not allowed to. Safek brachas lahakil. But because of this, you shouldn't lechatchila change your mind and decide to eat more. Because then you're entering yourself into the debate. You're causing the machlekes by being indecisive. So either decide not to eat and you're done, or decide to continue eating and everyone agrees. You don't have to say a bracha. But don't do the back and forth. Now what happens if you did? You did and you really want to eat this last piece. Or what happens if it's a child that didn't finish all of his salad, all of his green beans? And he says, but Mom, I already decided to stop eating. Now I would have to say a new bracha. Now I'm in a big machlekes if you make me eat the rest of the green beans. We usually gain this knowledge after the age that our mothers no longer care if we eat the green beans. But anyways, so in such a case, the halacha would be, and the child would benefit in this case, that if you want me to eat the green beans, you have to give me a candy. So I can say shahakal on it and include the green beans in the bracha. We discussed this in the past. Whenever in a meal you have a suffix of whether a blessing is necessary or not, escape the dispute by taking a shahakal item that needs a bracha said in a meal and say shahakal on it. Say if you take a piece of chocolate and you say shahakal on it and have in mind that it includes the food, you're good. This includes even bread. I decided to no longer eat. I ate 3/4 of my hamburger sandwich in the bun, and I left a quarter. I was full. I was on the phone for about 10 minutes, and I decided to re-eat again. I was going to bench and put it away and throw it out, and I decided to change my mind. So now I have the debate. So what do? I can take a piece of chocolate, parv, of course, say shahakal, and have in mind for it to include the bread. And then I'm good again. And then you can eat. So that's the way to escape this issue of indecisiveness during meals, but the water would have to say bracha. So another way of doing it is change your mind to drink, say shahakal on the drink, and have it included, and include the food in that bracha of shahakal. This halacha that we said there's a debate is only by a meal. However, if I was eating something outside of a meal, if I was eating a cucumber, I was eating a salad, I was drinking a cup of coffee, and I decided to stop, to end, meaning not stop, I decided that I'm done. And then I changed my mind to continue, everyone agrees you have to say a new bracha. It's only during a meal that we say, during a meal, you don't really remove your mind. But during a session of snacking, we say removal of mind is complete, and therefore, if you change your mind, you would always need to say a new bracha on the continued eating. Now, sometimes we enter into a mind game because we stopped eating, but we never actually told ourselves, I'm done eating, but in essence, that's in essence what we did. We stopped eating because we intended not to eat anymore. So this gets a little bit tricky. Bottom line is like this. Unless we consciously intended that we're done, only then should we say a new bracha on the food. If we didn't consciously intend, we just put it down. For example, I have a cup of water. I drank half the cup and put it down on the table. I drank because right now I drank enough. Does this mean I had intent to no longer drink? No. For the temporary drink that I just took, I was done. But for the future, I never yet removed my mind from a future session in the near future of drinking the cup. And therefore, not to get too confused, it's only if you have explicitly decided to end it. For example, too much, it's really in dieting where this comes up. Usually when a person, is eating, he prepares a certain amount of food, he eats it. If he's full and stops eating it, he's not going to get hungry the next second. But if a person stops it because of diet, or because he had to go somewhere, and then suddenly he discovered that nobody's looking, he'll break his diet, or he discovered that he doesn't have to go to where they want him to go, so he's back. So this was a complete removal of the mind. And in that case, that's where we say in a meal we have the debate regarding the foods, but outside of a meal you would have to say a new blessing. Now there's a question regarding a meal. If the balabas says, let's bench, when the leader of the meal says, let's bench, does that cut off now? Is that determined now as the end of the meal for everybody? Meaning if somebody wants to continue eating, he now has to say new brachas. So Halacha says like this: if the people agree with his statement and they say, you're right, it's time, let's bench, then even if, and this happens with guests, sometimes someone asks something, a conversation then ensues, and then you become hungry again, and another dish is brought to the table, etc. So in a case that everyone agreed to let's bench, it's considered a cutoff and new blessings have to be made. But when the guest said, oh, come on, it's so early still, when the guests showed signs of protest, then it's not a cutoff, meaning it's only considered a cutoff if the people on the table agree with the balabais. Now the question is, who's the balabas? If the husband says, let's end the meal, and the wife says, let's continue, or the opposite, who wins?
Your wife.
Is it a cutoff or not a cutoff?
Probably the man.
So this is a very difficult shaila, so don't get into these disputes on the table. Have it an agreed discussion, or just never say let's bench. Ask a question. Does everyone agree that we bench? Okay, no, okay. Or I'm benching. Okay. Okay, that's the end of our chapter in Hesach Hadas. Again, this is a very short summary. There's a lot of material here. We're just doing the basic minimum. Any questions on this?
Yeah, if you're eating something, you haven't washed hamotzi, but
Mhm.
you're eating mazonos and adamans, and then you thought you were finished, and then like 5 minutes later you want to continue. If you want to make a new bracha, would you also have to do the bracha achron for what you already ate?
No. No. The Hesach Hadas that disconnects you from the previous blessing is only by a before blessing. The after blessing, you're saying then will cover everything. So whenever you repeat, you never have to say a new after blessing. The only case you would, I do want to bring it up, but you're already asking is in a case during an actual meal where you already poured the wine for bracha for kaishel bracha of benching, or you already did mayim achreinim. That's considered already a complete removal from the meal. Then you would have to say it before and after blessing on what you eat. Let's say I have a cup of water, I would have to say burn nefashos also, and only then bench. But that's a unique case. It's a unique case. Usually, we don't do any more kaishel bracha usually in a normal status. And mayim achreinim is, that's it. Once you do mayim achreinim, you're done. You bench already. So it's not very common. I didn't mention. It's also we're up to now mayim achreinim. That's what we're up to now in the halachas. We'll discuss it now. It's not so relevant to women.
What if you're out of the room, and the people in the room have started benching, and you come into the room, I don't know, maybe in the kitchen or something. Do you have to start at the beginning, or do you continue with them, or?
For first, let's deal with the question: can you continue eating on the basis of your first blessing? So I would say that yes, because you never agreed to bench yet. You never thought about benching yet. So you're still in your meal.
Right.
If you were, if you heard let's bench is a great idea, and you went to the bathroom to get ready to bench and come back and they were already in the middle of bench, you know what, I'll just continue eating. Nobody else can eat now except for me. And so then you would have to say a new bracha. But we said there's a machlekes, so therefore by liquid you say a new blessing, by get a piece of chocolate out of it also, say chocolate, have it in mind, or have a bracha of the liquid. But in a case, obviously you have to bench on your own. You have to start from the beginning. When you decide to bench, you have to bench from the beginning. Okay, mayim achreinim. So this custom that we see that at the end of the meal, prior to birchas hamazon, We take some water, we put it by the tips of our fingers, we put the liquid by our lips. What is this all about, and is it relevant to women or not? So first, let me give a bottom line synopsis of what's done today. You have many Jews today who don't do Mayim Achreinim at all. Of those who do, you have some who do it in a very they do it in a way that only a little bit of water touches the fingers, only the tips of the fingers, not an actual washing. That's the Chabad custom. We do a very little tip, only the tips of the fingers. We don't really do the whole hand. This is also the custom of majority of jury of those who do it. Others do it fully. They wash everything. Nagelwasser. They wash the hand properly. And the widespread custom of women is not to do Mayim Achreinim. This is the bottom line summary of what's done today, and let's now try to understand what's going on. So Mayim Achreinim is a halacha, not a custom, but a halacha written in the Talmud, written in the Shulchan Aruch, and it was required for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is because it's not nice to say grace after meals with dirty hands. Back in the day, people used to eat with their hands quite often. It wasn't the fork wasn't very much in the eating industry yet. So just imagine a dignitary comes in and you shake his hand, and with the shake you get the hummus, the tchina, the salad dressing, the gravy of the chicken, everything that was on his hand. And if he had just ate a milchik meal, just imagine the catastrophe happening now in the hands. So because of this, it's not nice to bless God, greeting God, grace after meals. It's not nice to have filthy hands, and therefore the hands should be washed. Today that we eat with forks, we're no longer cavemen. We eat with etiquette. We have our forks, our knives, and our hands are quite clean. And even if they get dirty, we right away get up during the meal and wash them. This reason is no longer really applicable, and our hands are already clean. We have another reason for Mayim Achreinim. Another reason for Mayim Achreinim is because of the sodomite salt. Back in the day, a lot of the world's salt came from Sodom, from the Dead Sea area. And the salt of the Dead Sea is very, very poisonous and dangerous for the eyes. Right? Nobody here ever had that experience. I hope not, in the Dead Sea. It burns like someone poured acid in the eyeball. It's very, very painful. So I'm not talking from experience. My friend had that experience. I'm talking from his experience. Opened his eyes in the Dead Sea. So it's very dangerous salt. And because this was the salt that was used in the foods, therefore, Chama were afraid if we didn't wash our hands, we may accidentally, after the meal, rub the eye and, blind ourselves. So because of this, due to sakana, due to danger, they instituted Mayim Achreinim. Now, this reason, too, doesn't really apply today, as most of our salt today is not from Sodom. Most of our salt comes from either evaporation or from other areas, sea salt, etc. Bottom line is that it's this reason is no longer so applicable. Another reason brought down, it's a story in the Talmud. Gemara in Yuma says the following story. See if I have the story here. Okay, I have to say it from memory. Okay. If I remember correctly, the story, as I said, is sourced in Maseches Yuma, and it says the following story. I believe it was Rabbi Meir who was visiting a certain inn. Let me get the story straight. He was visiting an inn. He had visited a certain inn. And he was with his friends. Now, the owner of the inn, his name was, I think his name was Kadur. Anyone remember? Anyone remember the story?
No.
I believe his name was Kadur. Now, as most stories in Judaism go, from memory, I may be mixing up different stories together, but that's okay. It's following the tradition. His name was Kadur, and the mayor was known for being Deir Shemus, for expounding on names. So he, when he heard someone who was called a good name, he would say, "Oh, this is a good guy." When you hear someone's called a bad name, he would say, "This is a bad guy. This is a thief." So when he went to stay at this inn with his fellow colleagues, Rabbi Meir Balanes, and he saw on the front desk, it said his name, Mr. Kadur, he looked at his friends and he told them, "This guy, be careful of him. He's a thief. He's a ganav." Wow, you don't even know him. You haven't even met him yet. He says, just look at his name. What is Kadur? Kadur Amabel, like the generation of the flood. And what did they do? Steal. Be careful. And his friend said, "Come on, Mayor, what are you always suspecting? Being down the kafchoiv, you're judging people, to the opposite side, negatively. Come on, you don't even know him." The mayor was cautious, didn't trust him with anything. Well, they assumed he was a regular, God-fearing, trustworthy innkeeper. So they trusted him with all their valuables. It came the day for them to leave the inn. They came down. They asked the innkeeper, Mr. Kadur, for the valuables, and he says, "I don't know what you're talking about. You never gave me anything." So what do you mean? Last week we gave you? What are you talking about? Look, I'll open up the storage area. Open it up. There's nothing there. He says, "You stole it. You stole stuff. You're accusing me of stealing. You're liars." So basically, what are they going to do? It's their word against his word, and the mayor's standing there nodding. You see, I told you. Now, what does it have to do with my machreinim? So the mayor said, "I have an idea. Usually, a man reveals only what he steals to one person, and that's his wife. Let's go to his wife and try to get his wife to give it to us." So they go over to Mr. Kadur's wife, Mrs. Kadur, and they tell her, your husband, we gave your husband these items of ours to guard while we were in the inn. Do you mind giving it back to us? And she's all suspicious. She knows that her husband doesn't give back the stolen goods. So her mayor said, "Your husband instructed us to tell you this, to give us back the stuff. And he told as a sign that I should tell you that you fed him lentils for lunch." Wow, how did they know that I fed him lentils for lunch? This is a sign that her husband must be telling the truth, that they must be telling the truth, that her husband sent him. So she gave them back the stuff. The husband arrives home. He wants to now count the cash after the guests have left. He asks his wife, "Where's the goods?" She says, "What do you mean? Didn't you tell me to give it back?" He says, "What are you talking about? I never said such a thing." And it says that he killed his wife. Now, this guy had some problems, very clearly. Now, how did Rabbi Meir know what he ate for lunch? In his own home, very simple. Mr. Kadur didn't do mayim achreinim. He left lentils on his mustache. He didn't wash his fingers and his mouth. So he had part of his lunch on his face. And because of this, Rabbi Meir was able to tell what happened. So this is one of the reasons. The Chachamim said they instituted mayim achreinim because we see here in this story that the lack of mayim achreinim caused death. Now, I agree it's far-fetched, and we don't have to suspect that most husbands will do something to their wives if they don't do mayim achreinim. But at the same time, the fact that mayim achreinim was associated, meaning the lack of doing mayim achreinim was associated with such a terrible consequence, the Chachamim said they instituted it to be done by every Jew at the end of a meal in order so it doesn't bring anything even close to such a thing. And this is really explained in Kabbalah. this was an extreme case of murder, but it's explained in Kabbalah that during a meal, the klipos are all around to try to fish some food out of us, get some energy out of us. And if we don't give them their little bit of a share, they'll try to take the whole cake. So Mayim Achreinim is actually giving them their little share. He said we have leftovers on our fingers, so we wash a little bit of it. It goes to waste. This is called feeding the klipos their share of fuel, so they'll leave us alone. It's like throwing the dogs the bone so they don't come after our body. That's the idea. So this is why we do Mayim Achreinim, and the reason why Mayim Achreinim in that story led to death is because in general Mayim Achreinim is giving the klipos their fair share. We don't give the klipos their fair share, then it may take something a lot more valuable. This is another reason why the sages instituted Mayim Achreinim to be done. Now this third reason is applicable even today, meaning the Kabbalistic reason. And because of this, we have the following practical different customs in Jewry of doing Mayim Achreinim. We have some who don't do it at all. They follow the opinion that the main reasons are no longer applicable. There's no more sodomite salt, their hands are clean. So they don't do Mayim Achreinim. This is an opinion brought down on the Shulchan Aruch, and there's many who follow this opinion. However, the Poskim conclude that despite the above custom of being lenient, it is best for every man to be careful to do it, even if you ate with a fork and there's no sodomite salt. As we already said, there's other reasons, as we mentioned, based on Kabbalah, that it is done. And this is the custom of all Chassidim, Anshe Maaseh, Sfardim. We do Mayim Achreinim before eating. It's only mainly Ashkenazim, non-Chassidic Ashkenazim who are lenient. But Sfardim and Chassidim were stringent in this. We do Mayim Achreinim due to the Kabbalistic reasons at the very least.
But
However,
those Kabbalist reasons apply to women also?
Oh, good point. So I didn't yet talk about women. But because the main reason that's left today is Kabbalistic reason, because of this, we don't really wash the whole hand. We only wash like the tips, like over here, first knuckle, up to the first knuckle. I'm going to talk about women in a second. Okay. Regarding women, so we do know that it is a widespread custom upon women not to do Mayim Achreinim. And anyone here is accustomed to it? Nobody? Now the question is why? Because in Halacha there's really no difference. Non-clean hands, also women can have non-clean hands. Sodomite salt, women also need to see. The klipos, there's no difference. There's really no difference in Halacha between men and women in this law. However, for some reason, we see men do it and women don't do it. So some want to explain the following. Since today we agree that the main reasons behind Mayim Achreinim no longer applies, therefore, only men accepted the stringency upon themselves and not women. In other words, women have accepted to follow the lenient approach that says that many Ashkenazim follow, that since the main reasons don't apply anymore today, therefore it doesn't have to be done. So this is the justification that they bring. Practically, there are some families in which even women are accustomed to Mayim Achreinim, but the majority are not. Even amongst Chassidim, the vast majority, the custom is that women do not do Mayim Achreinim in Chabad, and they can continue that custom of not doing so. As I said before, it does have basis as Minadin today, and the main reasons behind Mayim Achreinim doesn't apply. If somebody wants to do so, no problem, they're allowed to. There's no Isser. And for the letter of the law, there's no difference between men and women in Mayim Achreinim. And there was once an individual in 1985, an Ashkenazi Litvish rabbi, who came out and wrote an article in the newspaper, in a Haredi newspaper, poking fun at Chassidim who do Mayim Achreinim. That they're Amaratzim. that the reasons no longer apply. They're just, he poked fun at the custom. And the Rebbe took this very, very seriously. The Rebbe said the following in the Sikha. It's one thing for someone to say, we're lenient in Mayim Achreinim because we follow the approach in Paiskim that say the main reason no longer apply. But to poke fun at Yidden who are machmir, Yidden who are stringent, and are following the suggestion of the Mechaber, the suggestion of the Alter Rebbe to be stringent even today because of the Kabbalistic reasons, he said he's never heard of such a thing. Even the Yevasexim in Russia never had the audacity to poke fun at the Chumros of Yidden. That's the Rebbe said in the Sikha. And in general, he was giving a Musar Haskell of just because, I might not be doing a certain chumrah, a certain act of hiddur, chas v'shalom, to belittle a Jew who takes that upon himself to do. And maybe with that said, I'll give a little 5-minute discussion on the Daf Hayemi. Some of you may have been up to date with the news that there was a recent Siyam Daf Hayemi here in Eretz Yisrael. I think it was in B'nai Omah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where it was. The big one for all.
I heard people were going.
And in America they did it. The main one in the world was in New Jersey, in Metfield Stadium in New Jersey. It had about 100,000 people there that joined the Siyam. So regarding learning Daf Yomi, I don't know if you know the history of it, but when it first was instituted, when the person of Meir Shapiro of Lublin came up with the idea, I believe it was in the 1920s, there were a number of Gedolei Yisrael who were for it, and there were a number who were against it. They were against the idea. Now, why were they against the idea? Why would anyone be against learning Torah? Wants to make a nice institution. So, of course, they weren't against Torah learning, but they had an issue with making this the priority of one's learning schedule. That was really the controversy. Should a person, especially Meir Shapiro's main idea was more not for the yeshivas to learn. In fact, yeshivas don't learn Daf Yomi. Not Sephardi, not Hasidic, not Litvish. No yeshivas learn Daf Yomi. Not that I know of. Maybe things have changed. When I went to yeshiva, nobody, not Litvish yeshivas and others. It was more meant for the balabatim, people who are no longer in. They're working, they're married, they're past that age of yeshiva, and they need to have a set schedule of learning that they can accomplish it. And so they would join Daf Yomi Shiur. So that was the intent of it, that they should have a scheduled learning. So those who were opposed to it said, of course, we agree to learning, but to create this pressure system of doing a daf a day is, number one, it's not always practical because every daf is different, and if it can cause material to be trampled over, meaning not learned properly, which is true. I've done Daf Yomi before, and it's very true. When you give yourself only an hour, which usually most Daf Yomi Shiurim are always, they have a set time, and they are not until you finish. Otherwise, it is because a person who doesn't have time to learn, Hilchos Talmud Torah says he has to study Halacha. A person doesn't have time to learn everything. He only has an hour a day to set for learning. The laws of Talmud Torah state in Shulchan Aruch that he has to prioritize learning Jewish law. So he knows what to do. He's going to prioritize learning Talmud. He's not going to have any time to know how to act like a Jew, because in Talmud, you don't learn the practical laws of Judaism. You learn the theoretical. You learn the debates. You learn a lot of interesting stuff. It's Torah. It's important. But you're not learning the practical laws. The practical laws take precedence over it. These are the different reasons for why there was opposition to the Takana. Practically, because of this, mainly back then, only Agudas Yisrael took the incentive, took the initiative, and did it. It later spread to other Lithuanian Jewry, and then even today spread amongst many Sephardim that they do it as well. But amongst Chassidim, some Chassidim, Agudas Yisrael part of Chassidic groups like Ger, back then Alexander, and others took this upon themselves. But other Chassidic groups were opposed to it, and they remain opposed to it till today. For example, in Satmar, you will not find a Daf Yomi Shiur. There's not one Satmar community you will find a Daf Yomi Shiur in. So don't go to William. Well, Williamsburg has a few shuls, but don't go to Kiryat Yoel, and ask them, when's the Daf Yomi Shiur? They don't know what you're talking about. What do you say? They are not accustomed to do it. And also in Lubavitch, what is the Lubavitch approach in it? So it's interesting. Lubavitch didn't take a vocal position regarding the Daf Yomi debate. Meaning there was a time in the Rabbi Yatz, he never spoke about it. Not one way, not the other way. Even though this was a fiery debate back then amongst Gedolei Yisrael. But in practicality, it was never accepted amongst Lubavitch communities to have to push for a Daf Yomi Shiur. And the Rebbe once addressed this in what we call a non-publicized talk, meaning this talk is not meant to be publicized, so it's meant to stay only within. And the reason is, I'll mention why the Rebbe didn't want to publicize, why I think it didn't want to publicize. But there in the talk, he basically talked about this subject, and he said the following, that it's a good takana, it's a beautiful thing, Daf Yomi, but at the same time, in Lubavitch, we have our own takanas that we follow, our own Shiur Torah, and the Gedolei Yisrael didn't agree with it in the initiative, and therefore, that's why, if he says the following, he was talking about one of the siyum of the Daf Yomi. He said, if a Jew feels bad that he does not participating in this finishing of Shas every 7 years, the Rebbe says he doesn't have to feel bad, because initially when the takana was made, it wasn't meant for, there were Gedolei Yisrael who were opposed to it, and for different reasons. One of the reasons is because of the different reasons I mentioned, that and we already have set learning sections, and therefore they're doing their set learning sessions, and they're doing theirs, and everyone's doing their own thing. But then he mentioned, but the fact that the Rebbe Rayatz didn't adapt it shows that he was not for it. He was not for the takana. So therefore, that's why quietly in most communities, Daf Yomi in the Lubavitch communities, it's not learned, very similar to Satmar. But at the same time, the Rebbe wasn't against Daf Yomi. In other words, the Chas v'Shalom, because you have people, for example, in other groups, I don't want to mention names, that they are against the whole concept. They're against showing up to the Siyum Daf Yomi. They won't show up. They're against taking place. The Daf Yomi they had almost 100,000 people now last week was without a huge segment of Jewry in New York that they don't show up to these things. They got the directive from their grand rabbi, no Daf Yomi show up. So but in Lubavitch it's a different shita. What they're doing is great, it's amazing. We encourage learning Torah. Just because we don't do it doesn't mean that we discourage it. And somebody who wants to do it, it's just the idea that it's not something that we force on ourselves. It's not something that's like Chitas, Rambam, that we make it part of our schedule, that everyone, we accept upon ourselves as an obligation to do. Daf Yomi we don't accept personal as an obligation to do, etc. At the same time, there are also other Rabbanim who came, for example, one time an individual asked Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef's son, if he should, he has about an hour to learn, and he wants to know if he should join a Daf Yomi Shiur. This was on the radio. So Rabbi Yosef answered him, it's usher for you to join the Daf Yomi Shiur. Everyone's like, what? Usher? You can say, I advise you to learn this, I advise you to learn that. What do you mean usher? What's usher about joining a Daf Yomi Shiur? He says, it says in Shulchan Aruch, if you only have a certain amount of time to learn, and you're not yet an expert in all the halachas in Shulchan Aruch, you have to schedule all your learning for those subjects. So first, become an expert in the halachas, I'll test you, and when you're done, you can discuss with me if you can go to Daf Yomi.
Wow.
That's how he answered it. So we see that even amongst other segments of Jewry, nothing to do with the debate that happened back then. There were people, even today, who don't suggest it if it's prioritized learning. But again, today it's better that a person learn than he not learn. And if this is the only thing that's going to get him to learn by having a set schedule, having a group that's learning together, and knowing he's going to finish the Shas in 7 years, then gesundheit, chas v'shalom, for somebody to discourage such a thing. And this is the idea I want to bring out from the Mayim Achreinim debate. That just because it's not a chumrah or hiddur that we're doing, God forbid, put down someone else's chumrah or hiddur. He also mentioned in that same talk when he was discussing this with Rabbi Yosef that one time a neighboring shul's Daf Yomi Shiur didn't have enough Gemaras to go around. So they walked into the baruch of his shul, and he sees a person walks in. He starts gathering all the Maseches Sanhedrins from all the shelves. He's gathering and piling them up. He's about to ask him, "Where are you going? Where are you bringing all these Gemaras?" He says, "Oh, we have a Daf Yomi share in the next shul." So he says, "Because you're learning Daf Yomi, therefore you have a heter to steal? Therefore you're allowed to steal?" He says, "What do you mean? What do you mean stealing? Oh, I'm going to bring it right back." It's also to take a sefer out of the shul. You have to ask permission from the Gabbai. He says, "If you step out of the shul, I'm going to call the police." You can't take the Gemaras. Oh, he was a tough guy. He was a tough rabbi. He says you're not allowed to take it out. It's stealing. It's gonna. You have to ask permission. What if somebody comes in? He wants to look up Maseches Sanhedrin. There's nothing left because you took it to the next door. So that's nothing to do with Daf Yomi. It says in general about the isser of borrowing svarim. There's certain things that as Yidden we don't have such a strong Jewish conscience about. And something we can do a mitzvah with an aver. It's pashut stealing. It's mamish geneva. It's not like it's a chumrah. It's pashut stealing. It's stealing the raisa to take something out of and it's stealing from the public nonetheless. But sometimes this is Jewish conscience doesn't think about it. Okay, there's a lot talking about Ma'amer Chayim, but I'm going to cut it short because in essence, as we just said, women are not accustomed to do it, and we went through just the background of why. We're going to do one more section and we're going to call it a day. We're going to continue with, let's see. Birchas HaMazon. We're going to begin benching itself. We discussed 2 weeks ago that initially a person has to say Birchas HaMazon in the area that he ate. If you changed areas, meaning let's say you forgot to bench, you already left, and then you have to go back. Unless you're going to miss your flight, you're going to miss your bus, but ideally you have to go back and bench. You have to bench in the area that you ate. Or who says we mentioned a trick? Who remembers? A trick that you can use to get out of needing to return to your place.
Take some break with you.
Exactly. Well, the you can't do it unless you had in mind. But if it already happened, let's say I went shopping. It already happened. I forgot to bench. I'm in the middle of the supermarket. I remembered I didn't bench. I have to drop everything. I'm online already and go home. You bought a loaf of bread, open it up, take a crumb out, eat it, and then you can bench in the store.
You don't have to wash it.
If you didn't have Esach Hadas, you don't have to wash. Unless a long time passed, you decide not to eat anymore, then you would have to wash. But if you didn't, if it happened right away, you wouldn't have to wash. Now, do you have to be in the same exact chair? If I ate here, can I bench here? The answer is yes. It's not any problem whatsoever. I've never even heard of a hitter brought down that you have to bench in your same seat. The idea is it's not that people have that, you didn't eat in that seat, you can't bench there. It's nonsense. You can bench in any seat you want. Furthermore, it's even brought down you can eat in one corner of the room and bench in another corner of the room. Within the same room, it's okay. It's considered the same area.
I thought the criteria was if you could sit anywhere as long as you could see the place where you first started the meal.
That's if you're in another room. Correct. For example, if I went onto the porch, my porch, it's a different room. Can I bench on my porch when I ate in my living room? So if, let's say in my house, I can see where I ate from my porch, then I could technically I can bench there. If I want to show off my halachic knowledge and trick people and have to wonder, what are you doing? And then open up a whole shiur. You see, look, it says here, You can do that. But nobody does that. We don't generally try to do that, even on the couch. I'm on the couch. I ate in the living room. There's a couch in the living room. I can technically bench at the couch. It's not, we don't generally do it. And it has nothing to do with if you can see your place or not. Whether you can or can't will make a difference. It's in the same room. You can bench in another area. In other words, the area obligation means the same room. Okay, that's the area obligation. So if somebody sat down in your seat, you don't have to wait in the seat next door impatiently for him to leave so I can finally bench. Bench in a different seat. Regarding how much bread you have to eat in order to bench, we discussed this many times. You have to eat a kazayas, which is 27 grams within 4 minutes. If you have to make sure at least 27 cc of bread is consumed within 4 minutes. If you've done so, then you are chayiv to say birchas hamazon. Until when is a person allowed to bench? This is the main halacha that we're up to now. We've discussed this various times because it was asked during the shiur, and what we explained was as follows. Let's first negate the common misconception that I mentioned in the past. There is no 72-minute rule. It's not correct. It doesn't exist. The answer to the question, until when may I bench, or when can I still bench, until when am I obligated to still bench, is not dependent on how many minutes passed on the clock, but dependent on your rumbling stomach. If your stomach is still full from your meal, that means your meal has not yet begun to be digested, which means you can still thank God for the energy your body has received, for the satiation your body is enjoying. So you bench. Even if 4.5 hours passed, even if 6 hours passed, doesn't matter. You're still full, you still have to bench. It's not a chumrah, it's a chiyuv, it's an obligation. You must bench if you're still full. And now if you became hungry after this, you have a very quick metabolism, you're a grinding machine, like some teenagers are. They can eat a meal half hour later, they're starving again. So then the halacha would be you only have a half hour until you start getting hungry again. Now this is where the Mishnah Berurah says an interesting chiddush, which those who follow would have upon whom to rely. In the Alter Rebbe, he doesn't make mention of such a chiddush in Safek Brachas L'Hakol, and we shouldn't follow it l'maisa, according to the Alter Rebbe. And that is that he says you always have till 72 minutes. Till 72 minutes, an hour and 12 minutes, you always have, meaning when you ate a meal to satiation, you for sure have 72 minutes that you can eat it, that you can bench until. Whether you're a teenager, whether you're an old man, you can always give yourself 72 minutes. After 72 minutes, then already it's dependent on what's going on with your stomach. But before 72 minutes, we assume you're always full. Even if your stomach's grumbling and you're hungry again, it's still psychological. You're really full. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't accept that approach. He says it goes very plainly by the stomach all the time. Within 72, after 72. But even according to the Mishnah Berurah, the 72 is only in regards to that I have to bench even if I start feeling hungry. But after 72, Mishnah Berurah never says you no longer can bench after 72 minutes. You still have to bench if you feel full. So it depends on how much you ate, what your metabolism is like, etc. Now, in a case where you're not sure, or you feel you began feeling hungry, and this can happen by long Shabbos meals or for break-ins. You can have an hour break and then you come back and eat again. So long as you have eaten a kazayas of bread before you bench, you're good. So whenever you enter into a doubt of what's going on in the stomach, I'll have another kazayas of bread within 4 minutes and then I'll bench according to everybody. So that escapes the issue. That escapes the problem according to all. And even if you didn't have a kazayas of bread, let's say you're eating throughout the meal, different foods, different courses. So even though you can argue and say, well, I ate the bread of 3 hours ago, that's for sure digested by now, and now I'm only up to the dessert, nonetheless, you're still full. It doesn't matter that it's collective fullness, you're still full, and therefore it's valid, and you are allowed to bench. You have to bench. All this is regarding if you're full from the meal. Remembers what we said regarding if you're not full from the meal. You only had one sandwich to eat. You don't have any more available. You had 5 crackers. You have no more left. You're still hungry, but there's nothing else to eat. How long do you have to say a bracha achrayna, to say birchas hamazon on your bread? And remember? I think we talked about this. So we said as follows. Following the stomach's growls is good when you were full, because then you have a clear sign. I'm full, now I'm hungry. It's very simple. Even if you're not majorly hungry and famished, but you begin feeling hungry again, so that's a sign that it's over. Your meal is over, you can't bench anymore. The pleasure is gone. However, when to begin with you never ate to satiation, the stomach was growling as you were eating, and when you were done eating, and after you were eating. So we can't use the stomach as a sign. of digestion because you weren't full. So we're stuck. So the Alter Rebbe says as follows. Some say that whenever you eat not to satiation, you have 72 minutes. That's where the 72 minutes comes. Then start the clock, you have 72 minutes. If you're still within 72 minutes, you can say a bracha achrein. But the Alter Rebbe throws it out. He doesn't rule that way. And we don't know, nobody rules that way. We all throw it out. The Maisa, we rule like the opinion who says that digestion can happen right away, and therefore, Lamaisa, you have to say bracha achreinos immediately after finishing your snack. Don't delay. Now, even the don't delay doesn't mean that second. You have 11 minutes. So you have 11 minutes. So this is halacha lamaisa. A person that had 5 crackers, he ate a kazayis within 4 minutes. That's saying alamichya. He shouldn't get himself involved in other things. As soon as he's done, he should just already say an alamichya. And if he's within 11 minutes, he should still say it. If 11 minutes have already passed, he now enters himself into a big machlekes. And what he'll need to do is have another 4 crackers. And this time, remember to say alamichya within 11 minutes. If he didn't, he'll have to have another 4 crackers. And by the time he's done, he may have to bench already because he's full from the crackers. And then he escapes the issue. But this 11 minutes is a chiddush of the Rabbi Chaim. No, the Alter Rebbe doesn't write 11 minutes. He just writes right away. But the question is, what is determined as right away? So ask 10 different people on the street what right away means. If he tells you I'm coming right away, one says means an hour, one says 2 minutes, one says 80 minutes, one says 50 minutes, a half hour. Everyone's different. For everyone right away is something else. So because of this, he went through a halachic analysis and proved that it's for sure no less than 11 minutes. So therefore, with 11 minutes, you're good. So that's what we rule. So in such a case that 11 minutes have passed, let's say by a drink. You had a drink, and you put it down, and 11 minutes have passed, and you want to now say, so if you want to continue drinking, like a shot, continue drinking, and you'll say bracha as soon as you're done your last drink. But if you're done drinking, and 11 minutes has passed since your last drink, then drink again. Drink again. Drink a revius, and then say bracha.
If you follow the Rambam's recommendation to only fill your stomach 2/3, even on Shabbos,
Right.
so you're never really satiated completely.
Right.
Then
Okay.
It's okay.
If you're I don't know exactly what the 2/3 satiation even means. I mean, what the Rambam's recommendation means. I'm not sure what that means. How much of your stomach needs to be full for you to feel satiated? Satiation is also levels. We see on Shabbos, we eat like 3 times the amount we eat in a weekday meal. Mm-hmm. Are we not full by weekday meals? So I think satiation can be stretched, just like the stomach. And so when the Rambam says 2/3, I'm not sure if he means, I think we'll have to look at the Lashon again in Hilchos Mada. I think he writes actually explicitly that you should feel hungry, a little hungry, right? Anyone remember?
I think so. Yeah.
He writes you should feel a little hungry. So according to that definition, then yes, he would always have to follow the 11-minute rule. True. Okay, Hadkan for today. Next week we'll continue.
Thank you.
So what if you eat your blood? I wasn't here. That's my problem. What if you eat your bread? It's not 4 minutes. It takes you 6 minutes, 7 minutes, up to 11 minutes.
For the evidence, it's okay. You should try to do a kazayas. It's just a kazayas. You don't have to eat all your bread within 4 minutes. A kazayas.
No, it's not bread that's the problem. The problem was with matzah on Pesach.
Right.
So I can't eat that fast.
Right. Well, you're not the only one. Many people can't. So lechatchila, you try to do within 4 minutes. If you can't, you do the best that you could. 4 minutes is
11. I mean, there has to be some cutoff.
There's a machlekes. How much is kedechlis pras? Some say it's 4, some say it's 5, some say it's 11. So therefore, till 9 minutes, you really have on whom to rely on Pesach. But 4 minutes is the way we rule a chatchila, that you should try to eat the kazayis, and that's why we try to eat it quickly, and we don't talk.
Okay.
But also by a sandwich. If you're eating as you're working, something you take a bite, you put it down, take a bite, put it down. You can end up not needing to bench, and you benched anyways because you didn't know.
All right.